Hello, it's me again at Faster FM radio, movement and coaching and stuff. It's only took a year to get back onto this, probably worth an applause. So enough of that. So I'm going to try and do these as often as possible, not promising, as last time it took a year. So I want to start today and I want to talk to you about the movement expert and how it's being redefined by the industry, and not in necessarily a good way. So movement seems to have become a victim of the new techniques in rehab, where a lot of people who were focused on biomechanics and pain being solved through postural and movement assessments and being solved through fascial manipulation, those people have now jumped away from that and become the people who are saying, well, it's all about this new model, this biopsychosocial model, which is to say everything's important, and that's important. So you need to consider the person and their life and the things around their life, their feelings, their thoughts, their level of depression, their nutrition, their sleep, all around this sort of belief system and experience that then delivers them with their feelings, where pain is seen as an experience, which is correct, and it is an experience, that's what they feel, and so there's more to it than posture, dynamic posture, biomechanics, and that's true also. So gone are the days where I was one of many who would say, oh, you have a pain because of a weakness or a tightness or a hypertonic muscle. And instead, it's more of a case of, oh, you're experiencing pain. Let me get everything that's nasty ruled out from that. And then once I've done that, let's start to work on how we can give you good experiences and positive experiences where you discover your own movement ability, your own bravery, your own skill development, your own performance. And then let's see if we can do that driven by a want to have a compelling reason to move. So it is true. The way I would have used the skills of knowing movement, biomechanics and assessment, those days have kind of changed and gone. And now what's replaced it is that the client is on an experience and I'm part of that and I influence that. But so does everything else, their financial situation, their partners, all the way through to how they believe they should move, how they're actually moving. Do they believe they're being treated? Should they want to be treated? Do they think the injury is going to be catastrophic to their life? Do they think people get injured and move on? And so the problem I have is that there's a lot of experts now. And whenever experts tend to cluster around a set of ideas, I tend to panic because I've followed these experts. And whenever there's a cluster of experts in an area, then usually at the top, there's some validity with the people who are in the universities doing the research. But under that, there's guruism and guru following and guru creation. And that worries me a little, frightens me a little bit for my trainers. And I watch people fall into these holes. And the hole at the moment is the biopsychosocial model hole. It's the new industry hole. Am I saying it's not valid? No, the opposite. I'm saying it's very valid. Am I saying I understand it fully? I think there's so many aspects to it. I don't know I'll ever understand it fully if it's a thing. But what I do know is that whenever I look at pain or injury or performance or skill development, the bottom line is usually moving. And that'll be moving more or moving better. If you can define that, better, I don't mean neutral alignment or better posture or to a definite skill, but moving better might be more often or with more awareness or with less fear. but moving's definitely a bottom line, and that comes up most illness that I see that I'm allowed to deal with. The requirement is to get the client to move. Most injuries that I see that I'm allowed to work with require me to get the client to move. When people talk about the biopsychosocial model, they have to be able to assess it. Now, looking at how you assess things with posture, looking at how you assess things with movement, that's outdated and gone. But you still have to assess how you're doing. And is the experience of the client getting better as you train them. And this is not better in this session. This is better over the long term, like something where you're measuring over a week or 2 weeks or a year or longer. Is their life progressively getting better, or is it not getting worse? It either might be the intended goal. For what we do, it's different. What we do is we try and get a client to share with us the reason they want to move, and by doing so, you also find out the reason they fear losing movement. And so from that, you can start to build an experience that the client can respond to positively. Now, when people talk about biopsychosocial being a model to apply, they're correct. But what seems to have happened is that the movement aspect is being run away from at pace because it was the everything that we did, which reminds me of when the Paleolithic and the keto diets appeared. When most people were eating low fat, then they got moved over to high protein, high fat, and that initial shift caused a balance. And then, like with anything else, the move too far that way caused a problem. So what I'm trying to say is that I see a benefit in being able to see and describe posture statically and dynamically. But I don't see it as a diagnosis tool, and I don't see it as something fixable, and I don't see it as a good or bad thing that you're observing. But I do know, if you're trying to work out what experience a client is having, when you start to speak to them and get to know them, you'll notice movements that they do when they're tired, movements that they do when they're not concentrating, movements that they do when they're in fear. And being able to pick out the subtle difference between that and when they move with confidence and when they move without fear, with bravery, knowing that difference will give you so much more information that you don't have to ask for, that you'll be able to push the client harder or stop them working so hard in order to keep them on track in having this experience that's positive. This could also be the same for static posture, where a static posture can be a reflection of the mood the client's in, and knowing these two facts can be a massive help when you start to train someone. Additionally, a lot of people who come to you want to train for something that they've not done before, and that requires a certain improvement in skill. And so from the research that I've read so far on skill development is about having this focused practice where the practice is focused on getting to points of failure where you can learn and adapt to the environment. You can put certain set of skills or set sequences of movements and reactions into environments, into different places to sort of reinforce the importance of that sequence. That's how you build a skill. At Fasto, we call that a cluster. We build it in something called an exercise generator. But actually, it's applying variables that don't fundamentally change the skill that's required to get out of the problem that you've created with the environment, but instead using the skill that you're trying to reinforce actually helps a person get out better. So when they fail, they're not using the sequence, but when they do hit the sequence well, then that becomes something the body can remember and grip onto. being able to see that sequence is important. And so having the eyes for the biomechanics that are going on is an important skill to have, even though it wouldn't be applied in the same way as before. No shortening, no lengthening, no correcting, but maybe saying, you're performing at what you feel is a 7 out of 10, it looks like a 7 out of 10. When you're performing a 6 out of 10 and you're too tired to notice, I can see it and prompt you. And so that seems to become an important skill to have. Obviously around that, the ability to storytell, to improvise, to be empathetic, to question and challenge, to help your client be brave sometimes through situations that seem counterintuitive to the client, but is correct based on the medical report you've been given or the medical advice they've been given. That's your job. And so what I really want to share in this podcast is that I wanted you to know that it's all right to train a client and to think movement's okay. It's all right to have the skills to see motion because they're going to serve you well when you're looking at how a client responds to exercise. I wanted you to see that posture and dynamic posture recognition has benefits, but not necessarily the benefits we were initially taught. And I want you to sort of understand that people interpret information around their bias. A lot of the people I'm seeing in the pain forums, away from the top level researchers like Mosley, when I see the other guys, I'm seeing some people in there that are still trying to fix. They're still looking for that elusive technique. They're still looking to be the guru. And I just want to be aware of that, because you want to be taking every individual as a case study, but then finding the best evidence possible to make decisions for that client. And if you do that, you'll end up with a better training session for the client and a better outcomes more likely to happen statistically because of the way you've devised your programming. So I did want to do a rant on strength training where people define improvements in strength and then go straight to exercises that they deem as straight from strength, but don't differentiate whether the bar or, say, for example, the squat or the change in muscle composition did the positive work, or whether it was the bravery of doing that or the feeling of strong or the perception of strong. So not slating squatting or strength conditioning, just saying it isn't this big save-all unicorn that people might think it is. But I want to leave you with a conclusion, and I'm aware I've only got a minute and a half of your time, really. So my conclusion is, if you're a trainer that provides the right experience, so the client shares with you their compelling reason to train, if you trust the experts outside of your expertise, people who can diagnose and treat, if you know how to coach someone through a journey and help them over the obstacles that come up as you go, if you know how to see and use movement in context of the client, and if you can avoid industry holes where potential wannabe gurus sit waiting to tell you everything about a scenario, even though you look back and they've not admitted that they were wrong before. If you can do that, it ain't bad being a movement coach. And this biopsychosocial model is definitely something to read up on, and something you'll see in our wiki pages on here where you can find faster research. Okay, till next time. Thanks. Bye.